The soft species. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a structure of light and force fields older than most civilizations. Inside, representatives from 100 worlds sat in judgment. Scales, fur, chitin, and stranger things still. Ambassador Chen stood at the center podium, human and small among giants. "The humans request a seat on the Security Council," announced the Arbiter, a being of pure energy contained in crystalline form. Around the chamber, the reaction was immediate. Laughter from the Thoraxian delegation, deep, rumbling sounds like rock slides, hissing amusement from the Velkari Serpent Lords. "Security," bellowed Commander Threx of the Krag Empire, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. "What do humans know of security? You've had peace on your world for nearly a century. Your ships carry scientists, not soldiers. You negotiate, you compromise, you apologize." The word dripped with contempt. Chen's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "We believe that makes us qualified, Commander. We understand the cost of war because we've paid it. We chose a different path. You chose weakness," Threx shot back. "The galaxy doesn't respect treaties, human. It respects strength." The vote was swift. Denied. Humanity would remain observers, builders of stations, runners of trade routes, fixers of broken things. Useful but not dangerous. Not worth fearing. As Chen walked through the crystalline corridors afterward, she passed a viewing portal. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. "So peaceful from here. So safe," her communicator chimed. "Priority alert." Her aide's voice was tight with fear. "Ambassador, the Krell have attacked mining station Epsilon 7. 2,000 civilians, mostly families. The colony sent a distress signal 20 minutes ago. They're requesting immediate assistance." Chen's blood went cold. "What's the Council's response?" "They've called an emergency session to discuss the appropriate diplomatic approach." "How long until they decide?" "Procedure suggests 48 hours minimum." Chen closed her eyes. 48 hours. The Krell would tear through that station in 4. Where's the nearest Earth vessel? "The ESS Victory. Heavy cruiser. They're 3 hours out." "And what are their orders?" A pause. "To await Council authorization before engaging." Chen looked back at Earth, at the peaceful world that had forgotten how to wage war, but not how to protect its own. "Get me Commander Hyan," she said quietly. "Encrypted channel." Because there was a difference between choosing peace and accepting slaughter. And humanity was about to remind the galaxy which one they actually believed in. The choice, the bridge of the ESS Victory hummed with controlled tension. Screens displayed the tactical situation. Mining station Epsilon 7, a civilian facility carved into an asteroid, now swarming with Krell signatures. Distress signals pulsed weakly from the station's core. Commander Marcus Hyan stood before the main display, his face carved from stone. Beside him, Captain Sarah Tay studied the readouts with cold precision. 200 Krell warriors confirmed, Tay reported. They've breached the outer hull and are working inward. The civilians have retreated to the central habitat ring, but the Krell are cutting through the blast doors. Estimate 30 minutes before they breach the last safe zone. Council response? Hyan asked, though he already knew. Still in session. Ambassador Chen says they're debating whether this constitutes an act of war or a localized incident. Tay's voice carried bitter irony. Estimated time to resolution, 18 to 48 hours. The civilians have 30 minutes. Yes, sir. Silence settled over the bridge. Every officer knew what that meant. By the time the council decided to act, there would be nothing left to save but bodies. Hyan turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Rodriguez, we have 20 Marines aboard, correct? Yes, sir. Fire team actual plus support. They're already geared up in the hangar bay. They know what's happening? Sir, they've been watching the feeds. Sergeant Mills asked me to relay a message. We're ready when you are, Commander. Hyan nodded slowly. He walked to the window, looking out at the asteroid field where Epsilon 7 tumbled. A pinprick of light among millions. Behind him, his crew waited. Captain Tay, he said quietly. What's the range to the station? 3 hours at current speed. 42 minutes if we go full burn. And if we engage the Krell without council authorization? Tay met his eyes. Court-martial. End of career. Possible imprisonment for violating the interstellar engagement protocols. Hyan smiled, a hard, cold expression. That's what I thought. He turned to his crew. Helm. Plot a full-burn course to Epsilon 7 tactical prep combat drop pods. Medical. Clear the bays for incoming wounded. Communications. Send a message to Ambassador Chen. The Victory is experiencing system malfunctions and is unable to receive further transmissions. Will report when repairs are complete. The communications officer's fingers flew. Message sent, sir. Good. Hyan's voice carried across the bridge. Now send one more. Broadcast it on all frequencies, council, military, civilian, everything. Sir? To Mining Station Epsilon 7. The Earthship Victory is inbound. Hold on, we're coming. Make sure everyone hears it. A pause. Then the communications officer smiled. Aye, Commander. Everyone will hear it. The ship's engines roared to life, artificial gravity straining as the Victory accelerated beyond safety margins. In the hangar bay, 20 U.S. Marines checked weapons that hadn't been fired in anger for 2 generations. Old weapons. Reliable weapons. Kinetic rounds, plasma cutters, and something the galaxy had forgotten about humanity. The absolute, unshakable conviction that some things are worth fighting for. Sergeant Elijah Mills stood before his Marines. Men and women in powered armor bearing the flag of a nation that technically no longer existed, absorbed into Earth's unified government decades ago. But the Marines remembered. They always remembered. Listen up, Mills said, his voice carrying over the pod bay. The Council says we're not fighters, says we're too soft, too civilized. They're probably right. He paused. But there are 2,000 civilians on that station, families, kids, and 200 Krell who think humans are easy prey. He loaded his rifle with a sharp click. Let's teach them the difference between peaceful and harmless, the Marines roared. Not with joy, with purpose. The Victory streaked through the void, and for the first time in a century, humanity went to war. The storm, the drop pods screamed through space like falling stars. Inside Pod Alpha 1, Sergeant Mills felt the familiar crushing weight of high-G insertion. Around him, his Marines sat silent in their harnesses, weapons locked between armored knees. No jokes, no bravado. Just the quiet focus of professionals doing terrible work that needed doing. 60 seconds to impact, announced Lieutenant Chen. No relation to the ambassador, but carrying the same steel spine. Remember the mission: breach, rescue, extract. The Krell will outnumber us 10 to 1. They're stronger, faster, and they've been fighting since before your great-grandparents were born. So what's our advantage, LT? Called Private Morrison, barely 18, her first deployment. Chen's smile was cold. They think we're soft. They think peace made us weak. They think 100 years without war means we forgot how. The pod shuddered as it entered the station's debris field. They're about to learn that humans don't forget. We just choose not to remember. Until we have to impact. The pod's shaped charges blew through the station's outer hull, and the Marines poured out into a nightmare. The corridor was painted in blood. Human blood. Bodies lay where they'd fallen. Civilians who'd tried to run, tried to hide. The Krell had hunted them for sport. On the walls, scratch marks where people had tried to claw their way to safety. Morrison froze, staring at a child's toy lying in a pool of red. Mills gripped her shoulder. Box it up, Marine. Feel it later. Right now we've got people counting on us. She nodded, and something hardened in her young eyes. Something old. Something human. The team moved forward in tactical formation, and within 30 seconds, they found the Krell. The insectoid warriors stood 7 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor that could deflect most energy weapons. Their mandibles clicked with alien laughter as they tore through a blast door, claws sparking against the metal. Behind that door, the last of the civilians huddled in terror. The Krell didn't see the Marines. Didn't hear them. Humanity had learned stealth from centuries of hunting each other. Mills raised his fist. His team froze. He pointed. Chen's squad left, Rodriguez's squad right, Mills's squad center. Crossfire position. Textbook. The Krell breached the door, started pouring through into the civilian shelter. Mills opened fire. The sound of kinetic weapons in a metal corridor was deafening, a thunderous roar that the galaxy had almost forgotten. The Krell had fought 100 species, survived 1,000 battles, but they'd never faced concentrated, disciplined human firepower. The first 3 Krell died before they knew they were under attack. Armor-piercing rounds punched through their carapaces like paper. The rest turned, screeching their war cries, and charged, and met humanity's second forgotten lesson: humans don't panic. Chen's squad emerged from the left, firing in controlled bursts. Rodriguez's from the right, plasma cutters targeting joints and weak points. Mills's squad held the center, a wall of armored discipline that didn't bend, didn't break. The Krell were stronger, faster, deadlier, but the Marines were trained. Every shot counted. Every movement had purpose. When Morrison's rifle jammed, she dropped it without hesitation, pulled her sidearm, and kept firing. When Corporal Zhang's armor was breached by Krell claws, he didn't fall back. He grabbed the warrior's mandibles and detonated a shaped charge against its head. For the families, Zhang roared and the corridor shook. The Krell had never heard battle cries before. Most species fled or fought in silence, but humans sang their fury, shouted their purpose, roared their defiance. It broke something in the Krell's predatory minds. These weren't prey, these were hunters. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When the shooting stopped, 23 Krell lay dead. The Marines had taken casualties, 3 wounded, none killed. Not yet. Mills moved to the blast door where terrified faces peered out from the darkness. U.S. Marines, he said simply. We're here to get you home, a woman sobbed. You came. Oh God, you actually came. Ma'am, Mills said gently, helping her to her feet. We're humans. When our people call, we answer. That's what we do. But the battle wasn't over. Throughout the station, 17 more Marine fire teams were hitting Krell positions. The aliens were learning a terrible truth. Humans didn't fight like the galaxy's warrior races, all rage and glory. They fought like humans, systematic, efficient, unrelenting. Every corner cleared, every civilian evacuated, every enemy neutralized. On the Victory's bridge, Commander Hyan watched the tactical display. Green icons, his Marines. Red icons, Krell. Blue icons, civilians being pulled to safety. The red icons were disappearing. Captain Tay looked at him. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from 17 Council ships. They're demanding we stand down, withdraw, wait for authorization. And the Velkari battlecruiser Divine Wrath is 3 hours out. They say they'll handle the situation. Hyan smiled grimly. In 3 hours there won't be a situation. Tell them the Victory still has communications issues. Aye, sir. On the station, Sergeant Mills led his squad deeper into the Krell-controlled sections. They'd saved 800 civilians. 1,200 more remained, and 177 Krell stood between his Marines and those families. Mills checked his ammo count, looked at his team, saw the same determination reflected in every face. We knew this wouldn't be easy, he said, but nothing worth doing ever is. We don't stop until every human on this station is safe. Understood? Ura, came the response. Not loud, not triumphant, just certain. They moved forward into the darkness, and the Krell learned what apex predators looked like when they stopped pretending to be harmless. The cost. The Krell Queen's brood chamber occupied the station's former cargo bay, a vast space now filled with egg sacs and the chittering of her guards. 30 of her finest warriors surrounded her, and she clicked her mandibles in satisfaction. The soft shells had sent only 20 soldiers. 20, against her entire assault force. She had studied humans. Read the reports. They were traders, builders, diplomats. When threatened, they retreated behind lawyers and treaties. The galaxy called them wise for choosing peace. The galaxy called them weak. Her tactical display showed red icons winking out across the station, but she wasn't concerned. Humans couldn't sustain combat. They would exhaust themselves, call for help, negotiate. That's what prey species did. Then her external sensors picked up movement in the access corridor. Only 4 heat signatures. 4 humans approaching 30 Krell warriors and their queen. She clicked in amusement. Suicide or stupidity? The corridor door exploded inward. What came through wasn't soldiers. It was a nightmare wrapped in powered armor. Sergeant Mills led the assault, but this wasn't the disciplined Marine from the earlier fights. This was something older. Something primal. He'd spent the last hour pulling children's bodies from wrecked habitats, had listened to a mother scream for her daughter, had watched Morrison, barely 18 years old, close the eyes of a child who'd bled out before they could reach her. The Krell thought they understood war. They didn't. War was industrial. War was strategic. What Mills brought was wrath. His squad moved like violence made manifest. Rodriguez carried a heavy plasma cutter, meant for hull breaches, not combat, and used it to carve through 3 Krell in a single sweep. Shen had abandoned her rifle for a combat blade, and she fought with a precision that was almost artistic. Every movement economy, every strike lethal. Morrison had stopped hesitating. The girl who'd frozen at the first sight of blood now fought with cold fury, her movements sharp and certain. And Mills. Mills became something the Krell had never encountered. Not rage. Rage was wasteful. This was purpose. Every shot meant to kill. Every movement calculated to end threats. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting so no more children would die. The Queen's guards swarmed them, and for a moment, it looked like the Krell would overwhelm the tiny human squad through sheer numbers. Then the second wave hit. 3 more. Marine squads breached from different access points, a coordinated assault timed to the second. The Krell found themselves in a crossfire caught between hammer and anvil. But the Queen was no coward. She rose to her full 10-foot height, her armored carapace gleaming, and let out a screech that shattered lights and cracked viewports. "I am Krell," she roared in broken standard. "I am warrior-born. What are you, soft shell? What are you but prey?" Mills reloaded his rifle without looking. Muscle memory from 10,000 training drills. Around him, his Marines cut down her guards with brutal efficiency. He walked forward through the chaos, bullets and plasma fire turning the chamber into hell itself. "You want to know what I am?" Mills asked, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "I'm a United States Marine. My people have been fighting since we crawled out of caves. We fought each other for 50,000 years. Every kind of war you can imagine. We got good at it. Too good at it." Another guard fell to Rodriguez's plasma cutter. "So we stopped. We chose peace. Built a civilization that didn't need war. We grew soft, just like you thought. Comfortable. Safe." He was 10 feet from the Queen now, his rifle aimed at her head. "But you made a mistake. You killed our people. You hurt our children. And you reminded us of something we'd almost forgotten." The last guard fell. The chamber went silent except for the hum of cooling weapons. "We're not peaceful because we're weak," Mills said quietly. "We're peaceful because when we fight, we don't know how to stop." The Queen lunged, mandibles spread, claws extended. 4 tons of armored killing machine moving faster than something that size should. Mills didn't move, just pulled the trigger.